Science had thrown
What
out
did you think I was doing? I was just giving him a kiss.
bathwater. I'm talking approximately the time of the birth of the human potential movement and the coming on of LSD and all that.
No,
What was
not you.
happening in science at the same time was people were building
Well, yes,
atom
you,
bombs,
but not the other one.
They were propounding behavior.
Also invited someone called Fan.
Ratomorphic theories of behavior. It was a great era of the triumph of reductionism and so forth. And so a whole lot of people wrote deconstructive books and essays about science and trying to link it back to the spiritual, and successfully, in my opinion.
What the fuck are you talking about? That's disgusting!
Probably most of you have
You're
read
talking about the disgusting thing!
Revolution, where he offers the, for the time, startling
disgusting,
and then proves it, that modern science is actually based on revelations, spiritual
ik noem jou ook altijd geile
people who had visionary dreams and so forth.
Zoals ik blijf slapen, toch? In bed?
How it does its work, which is you take your colleague's earlier work, you carefully check the facts, you perform experiments, you advance theory by incrementally advancing hypotheses that you carefully test. That's the story you tell once you have the beast dead in the boat. But the real experience of dragging one of these things out of the water is much more dramatic.
Maybe your video card's too old.
Chance taking, and for instance, we know now that Gregor Mendel, when he did his
ja, maar dat rekent niet die CUDA-cores mee.
That if he had actually been rigorous,
die CUDA-cores worden daar niet in meegerekend.
He would have missed the law of genetic segregation.
Ja, maar die
quite perform in the theoretical way that Mendel's notebook seemed to show. What he did was he rounded up
I'm alone!
Down because he already had an intuition that the recessive gene would have a certain mathematical characteristic. So he played with the data to make the theory right. Well, then it turned out it was right. But rarely can you play this game and get away with it the way he did. So, as acids came on in the late 50s and early 60s, and as science reached
ik geloof je.
An obnoxious crescendo.
Oké, de punt dat je...
It had gone too far. Now, it was producing atom bombs, but not giving us a social psychology or a theory of psychoanalysis or anything like that we could really use. That seemed to be coming from the underground. What was wrong with science? Well,
ja, ik ben weer alleen op punt. Kom op mensen, volg me dan gewoon.
I think it had become too dependent on on probability theory, on statistics.
Je hebt mij donuts met suiker gegeten. Natuurlijk voel je dat niet lekker.
Assumptions the way it did its mathematical bookkeeping were not apparent.
You are sick boy, sick in the mind.
Working in this manner. So when I'm confronted with a historical phenomenon, my method is to go back through it.
I do not try to do that.
And find the last sane moment that it was, and then make judgments.
Ja, kom nou bij mij, kom op!
To analyze science in that way. The last that the basic question for the rise of probability theory is science is the idea that human beings
Jesus Christ.
Understand nature, not relate to it, not ritualize it, not worship
Shit game.
but intellectually encompass it somehow through modeling. And when you try to do this, a rule that quickly forces its limitations upon you is and it's very basic to the Western mind, is this thing formulated as Occam's razor. William of Ockham was a 14th century philosopher who founded a point of view called nominalism. But the thing that Occam said that is germane to this argument is, he said it in Latin, and there's different arguments about exactly what he said, but here's the boil down. What he said was, hypotheses should not be multiplied without necessity, or to further boil it down, keep it simple, or halfway between these 2 points. In all situations, the simplest adequate explanation should be preferred.
I go to Jenga.
It's also sometimes called the principle of parsimony. Parsimony being the simplest and most elegant way of doing it. So it's the principle of parsimony, that the simplest adequate explanation should always be...
Die mighty geile
This
ding
is a
noemt.
great idea. I don't think you will get into trouble
Why?
with this idea. And to sort of close the loop generated by Jim's question,
This
this is where the reaction to science has gone wrong. The principle of parsimony is now...
Ja, dan is het een teenager. Teenager, always cringy.
By other people. In other words, when you sit down at the table in the dining room and talk about the universe with people, you cannot be sure that if you mention this idea, whether you called it Occam's razor, the principle of parsimony, or you explained what it meant, you can't be sure that it would have any intellectual...
Wat zegt ze?
Somehow people have moved into a Baroque or even Rococo phase in their model building. And they have no problem adding on...
Dat je wat gaat doen in Discord?
And illogical bells, whistles, curlicues, filigrees...
I always have pronouns in my Discord guy. Do I?
To their thinking. And it's a problem. It's a problem for everybody in society. What puzzles me is, it offends me that psychedelics...
You're never gonna use any pronouns, right?
We're the last.
Huh? No, I'm Void. Call me Void.
Spiritual illusion, because we have access to spiritual reality through the substances and the plants. So why should you?
There is. I can send you the Wikipedia page.
Buy in to all these unanchored, woolly, fluff-headed ideas that are being pushed in the spiritual marketplace. The only answer
Pretty hard to get the Wikipedia page.
Simple proximity. That by
they even have their own flag.
We have been lumped in to people, and they move freely among us, easily detected, but rarely ostracized.
Sorry, I cannot hold this.
Our own tolerance has become our root. And it's this weird political correctness where people do not say what you just said is preposterous. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Jesus Christ, my ear's bleeding.
So ungenerous of spirit.
Kenji, fall back.
No sense at all. It's
okay.
That their feelings, I think, have become preeminent in the value system. It's more important not to hurt someone's feelings than to let them walk around with a head full of crap.
Maar ik ben een oude man, anders hoor ik je niet zo
Having
goed.
identified this as a problem and having never been terribly sensitive to other people's feelings anyway. I was a good person to send to the ring. But the consequences of this are not good. In other words, if we really want to build a
Kill the monker! Kill the monker!
sane and caring
And do it.
we can't do it based on illusion,
So close.
unanchored thinking, and just plain silliness. It's very hard. The world is in the hands of very far-eyed.
But he did not jump, he just
people.
got
They have learned
pushed
that
out by
owning
Roadstock.
the planet you can make money. They are not going to easily step away from the wheel. They are going to have to be presented with an overwhelming argument or circumstance for them to go quietly into retirement. And by vitiating the thrust of critical thinking with this cult of generalized political correctness, we weaken our case for a new way of running the world. In fact, our entire political phenomenon becomes a case against the relinquishing of power by the old order. So, I've tried to put this in a very general form without naming names or goring anybody's particular life, because I don't think it's a good idea to then move on to the Inquisition and drag each practitioner forward and, with fire and lance.
I blade Torbjorn. Do we need to heal her?
This needs to be done internally. And it's a strange thing. It's very complicated. Part of the problem, and we've talked about this in the past, is that the media is a system for
Monkey's gonna flank.
The trivial and the absurd. In other words, man goes to work, does superb job, returns home. This is no headline. No one is interested in this.
Everyone, Monkey's gonna flank.
Alien Mom 9 gives birth to dead Christ. Now this is extraordinary and resonates in many people's minds. And if there were corroborative evidence, it would move around the planet as a hysteria within hours. As intellectuals, by intellectuals I mean people who can read, as intellectuals, we are guiltier than most people in participating in tolerating this kind of a system, because it literally is the system of bread and circuit. Energy follows attention. Therefore, if attention, focus can be trivialized, those who work in the background of social consciousness are
What did this? The animated this.
What can be done about the media? Why does the media behave this way, and what can be done about it? Well, the media amplifies trivia because trivia sells.
Monk on the sides.
And ultimately, it's hard not to reason back to one's own skill. Ultimately, it is the childishness and self-indulgence and muddle-headedness of each one of us that allows this entire system to come into existence. This system of commodity fetishization, objectification of social values, the marketplace of ideas, the idea that everything can be put into an economic model and value, and then our appetite for
that is a lot of that.
Pop culture, which is essentially an arena of
and they got the team.
Propagandization, brainwashing, and
Let's group up.
Consciousness established. And it's weird how everyone, and I include myself in this, issues themselves an exception to the felt moral obligation to have nothing to do with this stuff. I mean, you know, you can be sitting with people of great intellect and intelligence, and then somebody will say something so absolutely bonehead lame that the entire illusion of any
Fuck.
intellectual class or a class of exclusive understanding completely dissolves. You know, as someone tears off to assail a
I think we
client
can do
or
this.
something like that. There's no end to it. And then in the ideological zone, which I keep being drawn back to talk about, but which I sense is the dangerous area, in the ideological zone, there's just all kinds of unexamined, shoddy intellectual goods on the
Yeah, that
market.
was a pretty good game.
Rupert Sheldrake was here a few weeks ago
Yeah.
helping launch a new book that we wrote with Ralph Abraham. We were talking about this, and he said what we need to do is establish an ideological consumer report where you would publish each month and you would analyze these ideologies in columns, and one of the columns would be requires any special condition.
What happens?
And so, for instance, if a theory required a unobserved 12th planet, you would put that in the column. Then you would say evidence of special condition, none. And then you would move on, and by this way you would rate, and then people could buy in the intellectual marketplace with a little more confidence. Of course, this is a parody, it's a satire. What is it a parody of? It's a parody of people's inability to perform this function for themselves. The last time I was here, the discussion turned toward neoteny.
Yeah.
And neoteny is a biological phenomenon of prolonged juvenilization in a species, or the retention of, the technical definition is the retention of adult characteristics into, or of juvenile characteristics into adulthood. And primatologists studying human beings have been at pains to observe that many things about us are infantile when we look at other primates. For instance, our hairlessness. All primates are born hairless, but we alone retain that characteristic throughout most of life. The ratio of our skull to our torso is a fetal ratio in other primates. We retain the fetal ratio throughout life. Well, what we talked about last time was how culture, evolution has carried this process to a certain level, and then culture seems to step in to put the nails in the coffin to completely neotenize you. And so we have, 65-year-old men running around in sweatpants and Nike running shoes, and everybody having their butt tucked and their tits pumped and all of this. Well, what is this? This is a culture of youth values, only the youthful body, only the youthful vigor.
But it's too late now.
What it's talking about. And
another part of I've got to paint.
You know, if you can get people really neurotically twisted around this idea, then instead of life being an unfoldment into wisdom, it's an anxiety-producing fall away from a perfect state of youth, which can only be approached through dyeing your hair, wearing certain colognes, certain brands of clothes, psychotherapy, yada, 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 all of these things. So neoteny is what I have identified as the way culture works at us to dumb us down. And I've even sort of reached the conclusion that, you know, nature has a limited repertoire of energy to expend in the evolution of any given species. So once a purpose is achieved, excess energy doesn't flow toward that purpose. Well, it hit me once when, after I had a physical and I was buttoning up, my doctor said, you know, in the 19th century, most people your age were dead. which is true. The average age in the 19th century was about 36 to 40 for the American male. I'm 52. A lot of people are outliving their culture, and if you're intelligent and you live past 40, you will outlive your culture. Some people may do it sooner, but you have to be a complete idiot to just buy in at 55, at 60, at 75, at 80.
Not worth it.
Going to be doing, expressing homophobic
I'm not
views, voting Republican,
feeling confident.
worrying about the ABCs of phony reality. I mean, most people get to a place where they just see it's a bunch of crap. The scandals are recycled, the philosophical issues are recycled, the technical innovations are recycled. Once you get through about 3 cycles of this, you realize that this is a media-created state of cultural involvement and reciprocal narcissism, only to be assuaged by the expenditure of money, and that you can just walk away from. It's unnecessary. And in fact, this walking away from it by more and more people, I think, is a precondition to any kind of reasonable attempt to get the planet on a course where crises begin to diminish rather than endlessly exacerbate. The values of production, acquisition, reproduction are all fatal to any human enterprise that is short-term success in the market. Apparently that is to be the primary maximized value. So this is a long answer to the question. The short answer is
Well, it was not super easy, but
hands-on, and I wouldn't call it scientific because it's not statistical, but it's realistic. First of all, nothing is what it appears to be. But on the other hand, very large structures are not likely to come into being unless they quickly achieve their purpose. So in other words, forms of
good job.
Over-baroque. I think the real truth about how reality works is that it's pretty much on automatic. Chaos.
Not sure why that was done.
Chance is cast in the number 2 role.
Okay.
And the
mistakes happen. Doesn't matter.
In there somewhere, and then somebody can organize a conspiracy that's running in one direction in the face of all that. Fine. It's good to talk about this because Esalen has been, a place where many very deep new ideas have been generated. Revolutions in psychotherapy, revolutions in general systems thinking, very significant political movements have been...
Wait for the tanks, maybe?
The whole Soviet reassessment and all that. But
I did not want to fall down there.
Some of the wackiest and least standard of these ideas. And that's fine in the context of the idea that all forms of advocacy should be permitted, and I would agree with that. But I think that the counter or the reflective value that must attend that is that all forms of advocacy.
Ik weet niet wat jij aan het doen bent, maar...
And there needs to be a general part that it's trying to scratch. There needs to be a general understanding of what constitutes of what we mean by words like truth, evidence, and testimony. The law is interesting. It's interesting to me how the law has been remarkably immune to the general wooliness that has crept into thinking. it is, if you commit murder, that the grave made you do it is not defensible. The devil made me do it. I mean, maybe it is defensible, but it's a pitiful people, it may be traumatic for people to testify in front of a grand jury, but on the other hand, if you have evidentiary material related to a crime, you're going to have to...
But this will be the last game for tonight, I think.
In the name of the generally established canons of what is good for society. And I think
What's that?
It's the mess, it's those kinds
Lady with the PP.
applied to a lot of so-called paranormal phenomena.
That's pretty gay.
They would just melt.
I don't know.
It's the inability.
Maybe she's trans.
That makes this stuff at the second, third, fourth, and
Some of them hide that to bait straight boys like you. Mercy.
And then one other aspect of all this, and then we can go on. And
Yeah, what's wrong?
We seem to be very naive about the nature of communication and how 95% or 99% of what moves around is unsubstantiated based on I mean, you know, we sit here with the assumption that we're all in the same universe, more or less, and that we're all experiencing the same reality, more or less. But this is just a polite fiction. I mean, if we were to go around the circle and instead of telling your name and your professional occupation, you were asked to explain how common household device works. So for you, the television set, for you, the entourage, for you, the thermostat, for you, furniture. I think we would largely discover that if anything past the most trivial level, it just turns into elves and goblins out there. I mean, we're hardly different from New Guinea Highlanders.
Why we group up? Because...
and we think we understand. Everybody's model works for them, even if they think, you know, that it's hemoglobin in your blood that's run around carrying on, because they heard it that way in second grade.
Yeah, surprise, surprise.
So
I'm healing.
This is sort of a terrifying thought to contemplate. That the actual understanding of reality is held in our species as a kind of diffuse cloud of ecstasy, but when you try to tease it out from any given individual in the cloud, you find just a cartoon. You know, if you read Ulysses, James Joyce's man, a lot of what's going on in Leopold Bloom's head as he wanders around Dublin are crack-brained understandings of technical devices, how he thinks the electric tram works, how he thinks about the odd...
Stay on the point, stay on the point.
How he thinks about how the sewer works. And it's all absolutely part of the same about reality. Well, if we don't understand things as simple as
Yeah, I cannot rest you guys.
then what is our real grip on phenomena like representative or the healthcare or the theory of evolution and molecular genomics? You know, it begins to get pretty scary out there.
Yeah.
So all of these things taken in stride,